Lead is a naturally occurring metal that can be found in all parts of our environment, the air, soil, water, and even inside of our homes. With enough exposure, it can cause negative health impact. By far, the most common sources of lead poisoning are within the home, particularly in old homes built before 1978, the year that lead-based paint were banned. In older homes containing this paint, when the paint peels or cracks, it makes lead dust, which children can swallow or breathe in. This is by far the most common source of lead poisoning. So if you have a home built before 1978 and would like to find out if lead paint is present, you can visit the link on the screen to find a professional to assess your home and make a plan to have your lead paint safely removed. Another common source of lead exposure in the home is drinking water from lead pipes, faucets, plumbing fixtures. Steps have been taken since 1986 to reduce exposure to lead in tap water. But if you are a Durham resident with a home built before 1986 and you are concerned there may be lead in your home's plumbing, you can request to have your water tested for lead. To request a free sample kit, contact Durham One Call at 919-560-1200. Finally, within the home, lead can also be found in some products like jewelry and old toys, as well as some candies, spices, and herbal remedies. Spices, herbal remedies, ceremonial powders, and cosmetics may contain lead, especially those imported from India, Asia, Mexico, and the Middle East. Buy spices locally rather than overseas. Domestic products have stricter safety standards and are more likely to have been screened for heavy metals. To avoid lead poisoning from toys, um, avoid letting your children play with antique toys made in the US before lead paint was banned in 1978. And be careful of some imported toys, as lead paint is still used in many other countries. And check products for state or federal safety labels. You can also check for product recalls at www.fda.gov and www.cpsc.gov. Outside of the home, lead can also be found in soil, although children are significantly less likely to experience lead poisoning this way than within the home. Lead outside of the home is less likely to be ingested in large enough amounts in the soil to cause harmful health effects compared to exposures in the home. Lead is most common in soil near roadways as a result of air emissions from vehicles that use leaded gasoline, near the perimeter of buildings that use lead paint that deteriorated as chips and dust, or from past renovation activities or near toxic waste sites. Sometimes lead can also be found in soil in more common urban areas, often as a result of leaded gasoline and paints used in the area in the past in older areas. This risk can be removed by covering the soil by grass, mulch, clean soil, or other materials. You can protect your kids from lead in soil by avoiding play in bare soil, having them wash their hands after playing outdoors, removing their and your shoes when returning indoors, and by teaching them not to eat soil. Finally, Lead can also at times enter the air. Exposure to lead dust exposure can come from incorrect renovation practices, like not using EPA approved lead safe work practices on homes built before 1978, causing lead dust to be spread in homes and yards and exposing neighbors. So be sure to contact a professional who is certified in lead safe practices if you have plans to renovate a home built before 1978. People, especially adults, can also be exposed through hobbies like creating pottery, stained glass, or refinishing furniture, or jobs in certain industries like construction, plumbing, or manufacturing. So be sure to wear PPE to prevent breathing in lead dust particles, and families should regularly change their HVAC filters. The good news is that lead in the air was decreased by 98% in the US when it was removed from gasoline.
Health risks of lead exposure vary by age. The risks are highest for young children under age 6. This is because their brains and nervous systems are still developing. At this age, lead exposure can cause slow growth and development, hearing and speech problems, learning and behavior problems, and damage to the nervous system and brain. People who are pregnant are also a high-risk group. Exposure during pregnancy can hurt the baby's brain, kidneys, and nervous system, and can cause learning and behavior problems. It can also increase the risk of miscarriage. Impacts of lead exposure in non-pregnant people are less likely to occur because bodies do not absorb lead as easily at this point, so exposure would have to be higher than for children or during pregnancy in order for negative health impacts to occur, and these impacts are not often long-term. But the risks are not non-existent if exposed to high levels of lead. These risks include abdominal pain, nausea, and diarrhea over long periods of high exposure. Effects can include increased blood pressure, fertility problems, and decreased lung function. It's important to note that in adults, these risks are most likely to occur in people exposed to higher levels of lead than found in homes or soil, like workers in construction or manufacturing industries. These are not all of the possible risks of exposure, so talk to your doctor if you work in a high-risk industry and are experiencing new symptoms. The people most at risk for health impacts from lead exposure are young children under age 6 and people who are pregnant. Children under age 6 absorb lead much more easily than people who are older and not pregnant, and the impacts of exposure are more harmful to them because their nervous systems are still developing. They are also more likely to ingest lead because of behaviors like putting their hands or toys in their mouth. These reasons are why the CDC recommends testing for kids in this age range. Lead can also be very harmful during pregnancy because the effects of exposure can be passed to the baby and hurt the baby's development or increase the risk of miscarriage. Adults who are not pregnant can, of course, also be exposed to lead, but their bodies do not absorb it as easily, so they have to be exposed to higher amounts to be at risk for negative health impacts. And even at high exposure, they are much less likely to experience negative health impacts than young children or people who are pregnant. After age 6, our bodies don't absorb lead as easily or experience health effects in the same way as young children. So unless you are likely to be exposed to high levels of lead, higher than generally found in homes or common backyard or playground soil, the health risks from exposure aren't particularly high. However, this does not apply to people who are pregnant. If you are pregnant, you should always be tested for lead exposure as part of your prenatal care. Additionally, if you work in an industry where you are more likely to be exposed to very high levels of lead, like construction or manufacturing, and you begin experiencing new symptoms, talk to your doctor about the possibility of lead poisoning. Impacts from lead exposure as kids can persist into adulthood, like learning and behavioral issues and risk for certain issues like hypertension. This is why it is important to talk to your doctor about protecting your children from lead exposure.
The most important way to reduce lead exposure is by eliminating risks in the home. If your home was built before 1978, have it tested by professionals for lead paint and work with them to have it safely removed if this paint is found in the home. A link to find certified professionals is shown on the screen. You can also test your drinking water for lead in case your home contains lead pipes, faucets, and plumbing fixtures. Visit the website shown on the screen or call 919-560-1200 for a free test kit if you are a Durham resident with a home built before 1986. To reduce risk of outdoor exposure, practice good health and safety habits like not letting your kids eat soil or washing their hands and removing their and your shoes when returning indoors. You can also reduce the risk of soil lead exposure by planting grass on areas of bare soil or covering the soil with grass seeds, mulch, wood chips, or clean soil if possible. Until the bare soil is covered, move play areas away from bare soil and away from the sides of the house. Get your home tested by a certified professional if it was built before 1978, the year lead paint was banned. Follow the link on the screen to find a professional and information about how to have the risk removed if lead is discovered in your home. Pediatricians routinely provide blood lead testing for children aged 6 and under. If you are in Durham and do not have a pediatrician, contact Lincoln Community Health Center for testing. If you are pregnant, lead testing is provided as part of prenatal care. Talk to your doctor about testing if you have a new concern or are not sure if testing has been provided. Parents should discuss risk factors with their child's doctor to determine if testing is needed, or talk to your doctor if you believe there has been a risk of exposure and would like to be tested as a non pregnant adult. You can visit our website at decopublichealth.org/lead to find more information and links to other helpful websites like the CDC, Environmental Protection Agency, and North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, where you'll find large amounts of variety of information to answer your questions.